Hey everyone, welcome to a new video. In this week's video we're going to be looking at drag and drop operations and mainly for the UI, so a drag and drop UI. And not going to lie about it, this video is heavily inspired by the Unreal documentation or learning centers drag and drop UI. It's going to look very similar to it, except I have made some changes along the way just to put my own personal touch on things, which we'll get into. But if you wanted to follow along with the written version, you can follow this, and sort of the extras that I put on, you should be able to sort of go through and add them on yourself. But yeah, this was a solid base for me. Needed to brush up on my drag and drop skills. It's not something that I've done a lot of, admittedly, and this will be the first video on the channel of drag and drop. But it's a sort of a part of the ladder towards a sort of an end result. I've got an idea in mind, but I'm not ready for that myself yet. However, I don't want to get too stuck on that. What I want to do is show you what we've got at the moment. So I've got a little health bar here on the screen, and at the moment we can't click on it. So this is where mine slightly differs. I've actually set up some sort of keys to make the UI editable. So I'm going to press that key now, and you can see top left it says UI editable. And then that brings up my mouse and allows me to move the bar around. This actual ghosted bar itself is slightly different to how they do it, but I won't get too much into that just yet. So I've put the bar up in the top. I'm going to press Control and hash for me, and now my bar is locked in position there. And you probably didn't notice, but when I drop the bar on the screen, in the top left it says data save. So that's the other thing that I've added to it. I've added a save and load system. So if I was to close this down now and then play the game again, it's remembered that position from last time. So I think that's quite nice to add on to there. So without any further ado, let's jump into it, and I'll go through some of them other differences as well. Okay, so I've opened up a fresh third-person template. No changes have been made to this, it's just a fresh template. So let's get started really. So all I've done actually is I've navigated to my third-person folder and then blueprints, and then in here I'm going to create a folder called UI. Go into that folder, and then what we're going to do is we're going to create two user widgets. So user interface widgets. User widget there. I'm going to call this WBP for widget blueprint, and then health bar, just like that. I'm also going to create a main HUD. So this is going to be the sort of the central hub, which I'm going to then HUD that I'm going to put all of my individual widgets on. So my health bars, my ammo counters, some stuff like that. So this is going to be WBP underscore main HUD, and let's start with the health bar. So this is going to be really basic and simple, and I'm going to follow along as much as I can with the website's version, so you can choose to do either one. So we're going to start with a size box. We're going to override the width and height. The width is going to be 400 and the height is going to be 50. If you want to see how that's going to look, you can change the view style from fill to desired on screen, and that's how it should look on the screen. And what we're going to do is we're going to put a progress bar inside that, just like so. I'm going to rename the progress bar to health bar, just like that. And I'm going to set the percentage of this to 0.7, just to give a bit of demonstration of what it's doing. And I'm going to change green to 1, blue to 0. I'm just going to basically set it to green, and that's pretty much it for that. So that's the health bar setup. And then what I want to do is go back to the content browser, open up the main HUD. For this, we're just going to go down to panels, grab a canvas panel, drag it out, and we're going to change the visibility to visible. If I don't do that now, I'll forget to do it and something won't work. But effectively what this allows us to do is, if it's visible, as the description says, it's hit testable, which means later when we want to do the drag and drop, it's actually going to detect the drop or whatever we're dropping, hitting it, and then it's going to allow the rest of the code or blueprint to work. I've already recorded this video twice, and I forgot to do that on both times, and it kind of annoyed me. So the visibility, make sure that's set to visible or this won't work. And then what we want to do as well is we're going to scroll down to the bottom where it says user created, and we should find the health bar that we've just made. We'll drag that onto the UI, and you'll notice it shrinks down to this dinky little thing. And we just need to enable size to content. Otherwise, this size X and Y overrides it and it squashes it down. Hit compile. Let's go back. Let's go to your third person blueprints folder. Open up your character and let's add the main HUD to our screen. I'm just doing this under the event begin player. You don't specifically have to put it in your third person character, but it's the best place for me to put it in this game. So create widget, find the class main HUD. From the return value, it's usually a good idea to keep a reference to this. So main HUD reference, main HUD reference, and we'll delete that one. Compile. And then what we want to do is from this, add to viewport. So that should put our HUD on the screen. So if we hit play now, we should get a health bar. But as soon as I click into the game, our mouse disappears. So what you can do, you've got a couple of options for this really. You could set a you could do a get player controller. And from here we'll do show mouse cursor. Pick a set and then tick that just so then that becomes true. That way when you play your game, your mouse cursor is then on the screen. The only downside to this is it kind of messes up how your aiming works, because now the mouse is taking precedent on the screen, so I have to actually click to move my guy. So I really don't like this way, but we'll come back to that, so don't worry too much about that for now. Let's set up this drag and drop operation. So what we want to do is go back to your health bar, and what we need to do is we need to detect when the mouse is actually being held down. And then secondly, if that mouse then moves whilst being held, we can say for certain that that is a drag operation. You know, it's gone from just a click and hold to a drag, and we need to do different things for both of those scenarios. So in your health bar, let's nip over to the graph now, and we don't need to worry about any of these events for now, because we're actually going to go to function overrides. So this is not just specific to widgets. This can be on your character and all sorts of stuff. There will be certain overrides that you can sort of play around with. So you click on override here, and these are all the things that if they happen or are detected, that you can do additional functionality if you need to. The one that we're interested in at the moment is going to be on mouse button down. Effectively, if somebody clicks and holds, this is going to run. Okay, so what do we want to do? Well, we want to find out where on the actual health bar itself has the mouse button been clicked. Like, is it in the top left? Is it in the top right? Is it around the center? Whereabouts is the mouse in terms of the actual health bar itself? So then when we let go of it somewhere else, we can sort of match that. We can match it like for like. Where we've dragged it and let go of it, we want to put the new bar in the same offset, let's call it. So to do that, what we need to do is let's get our geometry and let's do an absolute to local. So an absolute sort of like coordinate to a local coordinate based on our screen. And then we also want to get the screen space of where the mouse is. So you can either go to input, pointer events, and get screen space position, or you can just search for that. The screen space position is going to be our input for the absolute coordinate. So here's my mouse, here's my geometry. Tell me how they, what's the offset of my mouse to the geometry. And we should promote the return value to a variable, which is going to be offset. Let's call it widget offset, just to keep it decent. Something I can remember. And offset's a bad word to pick because there is actually a default offset later on, and it can get confusing which one's which. Okay, so we've got that for now. And then the other thing we need to figure out is if because this is sort of like the mouse down, if we detect that the mouse moves as well as being held down, we can say for sure that that's the start of a drag and drop operation. So here's a good place to detect a drag if pressed. So the drag key is going to be our left mouse button down. So if it's our left mouse button which is starting the drag, then continue. If it's not, then just ignore it. And then the actual pointer event is just going to be the same as this mouse event, so we can plug these in here. You can give this line a double click, add a reroute node just to make it look a little bit prettier. So let's put that there and that there. Let's move this over. I don't want to spend too much time making this look pretty, but you should be aware of it. And then the return value just goes straight into that. Okay, so for our on mouse button down, this is the script. And then let's move to on drag now. So again, under the functions, we're going to do an override. And if a drag is detected, or once a drag is detected, this is the thing we want to do. What do we want to do? We actually want to create a phantom health bar, which is that shadowed health bar. So as we're moving it, we're not actually moving the bar, we're moving sort of like a clone of it, and then when we let go of it, the original health bar is going to jump from there to the new position, using the shadow as a guide of where we want it to be. So this is something that differs from the Unreal version. They actually create a whole new user widget as its own blueprint, purely for the effect of the shadow, which I think it's more sensible just to create a new one of the existing widget. So for example, we're just going to create another health bar. It's the exact same health bar, whereas they do like a health bar shadow kind of thing. But I think that's rather pointless in my opinion. Anyway, from the return value, I'm going to set the color and opacity, and I'm simply just going to make our existing health bar a shadowed version. So with it being all black, let's just change the transparency to like 0.75. Hit OK. So we get a darkened version. And if necessary, you can promote this to a variable, but we're not really going to use it much further than this screen, so I wouldn't really bother. Then what we need to do is we need to actually start the drag and drop operation, so the drag part of the operation. So what we'll do from here is do drag, whoops, spell it right, and drop, or drag drop, there we go. So create a drag drop operation. That brings up this window. And then we're going to connect the return values and the executes together on the end there. Okay, so what we need to do is we actually need to set up a drag drop operation ourselves. So let's just go back to the map or our content browser, nip into the UI folder, right click, create a blueprint class. Now under your all classes, just drop this down and we're going to search for drag. And you should see this drag drop operation. Select that. And I'm just going to put DDO for drag drop operation underscore widget drag, something like that. I'm going to go into this. Now, the only thing we need to change in here, well, we don't need to change anything really. We just need to add two variables just to sort of track which widget we've actually started dragging around, and then the offset which was created based on where the mouse was on the widget. So two variables. So one of them is going to be of a type user widget. And I'm just going to rename this now to widget reference, like that. I'm going to create a new variable and I'm going to call this drag offset. And this is going to be a type vector 2D. Oops. Vector 2D. There we go. Hit compile, and then just before we move on, make these both instance editable and expose on spawn. Hit compile, hit save. We shouldn't need this anymore, so you can close that. Go back to our health bar, and in here we just need to change the class now to our DDO. and you'll notice that we've now got a drag offset and a widget reference. I'm just going to press right click and refresh node, and for whatever reason it puts them additional variables down at the bottom. Not sure why it does that on the refresh, but who cares? So what we've got to deal with here is the default drag visual. So that's effectively during the dragging operation, what do we want to drag around the screen? So we don't want to drag the actual health bar, we want to drag this shadow of it, so then we can use that to position where we want it to be. So for that, we can just simply connect straight into the return value of the health bar that we're creating. So obviously, don't forget, we're creating this shadow with changing the color and opacity. So that's going to be the drag visual. Let's double click that, put that there so it's a bit more obvious. The pivot, so what do we want to pivot this drag operation around? And we want to do the mouse down. So wherever the mouse was held on the original, we want the drag operation to follow the same offset. And then what we want to do is we want to pass in the offset that we created earlier. So that's here. So widget offset. And don't forget that was made in the on mouse button down. And then what is the widget reference we want to carry forward? And that's going to be our self. The reason it's going to be self is because this blueprint is made inside the actual health bars widget itself. So saying self, we're just saying the actual health bar that's visible on the screen before we drag anything, that's the reference we want to carry forward. And that'll all make sense in just a sec. So hit compile, we have no complaints. So all we need to do now we've got the drag part of the operation sorted, we need to sort of set up the drop part. So before we continue, what I will do is I'll just show you now. Obviously, if you click into the game and start running around, you can't get your mouse. But if you press Shift and F1, it gives you your mouse back, and we can just test this. So you can see that we're getting this shadowed version of our health bar, but then when we let go, nothing happens because the drop part of the operation doesn't exist yet. So let's jump into that. So on the main HUD itself, so in here, we're going to go over to the graph. Now remember, if you didn't do it at the beginning, you need to go to canvas panel and make sure your canvas panel's visible so then it can detect drops because they are classed as hits. Go over to the graph, and in the graph we're not going to change anything here, but we're going to go to function overrides and we're going to get on drop. So when the canvas detects that a drop or something has hit it and it is a drop, we're going to run this code. So, just switching over to the health bar for a second, just while I explain something. When we create this drag and drop operation, it returns an operation. In the main HUD, when we receive a drop, we actually expect to receive an operation that created the drop or the drag in this instance as well. And we know that that's our DDO widget. So what we can do is DDO, and we can cast to that. The reason we want to cast to that is because if you remember, we created those two variables. We created those two variables. One of them was drag offset, so we can get the drag offset. And you can see here that there's an offset and a drag offset. So the drag offset is the variable we created, and there's a default drag and drop offset. So we want our offset. The other thing we created as well was a widget reference, which is our health bar. So we want both of these. And what we want to do, let's start with this bit first. So similarly to how we got the offset originally, we need to find out the effectively offset of where we've dropped it. So let's do that. So absolute. So absolute to local. Exactly the same as we did at the beginning. Pointer event, screen, space, position. Plug these two in together just like that. But what we actually want to do this time is from the return value is subtract the offset that we created at the beginning. If there's no difference between the two, this won't do anything. If there's a subtle difference, it'll just correct itself. I guess just trust the process on this one. What this is going to do is it's going to allow us to give our original widget, the actual health bar that's in colour, it's going to set its position correctly. So what we can do on that is set position in viewport. We want to remove the DPI scale, and then our position is going to be this this version here. We also want to connect the return node to this, and there's two more things we need to do. Is we need to remove the original widget, the original health bar, off the HUD to make it visible. Sorry, to make it visible. Remove it from the sort of like the top left hand corner, and then we want to re-add it in the new position. So we're going to remove from parent. So we're going to remove where it is to start with, and then what we want to do is immediately add to viewport. So we're effectively removing the old one, adding the new one, and then setting its new position immediately to where we've dropped it. And in theory, if I've done everything right so far, this is all we should need. So we can run around. I'm going to do Shift F1. I'm going to drag that from here and pop it down in the bottom like that. Click back in my game, and we've now got a drag and drop UI. So all we need to do now is just add up a few little niceties to make it a little bit better to use. So like a hotkey, so then we don't have to mess around pressing Shift F1, just to make it look a little bit better. Okie dokie. So if you only came here for the drag and drop element, thanks for watching so far. If that was helpful, consider giving me a like. And if you want to stay around for the extra bits, well, here they are, I guess. Let's stick around. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create myself a blueprint class. I'm going to pick a player controller. I'm going to put BP underscore player controller. And before we continue, just so I don't forget, I'm going to go to the list of world blueprints, go to project overrides, or project settings, should I say. Go to my controller and select the one that I've just made. So nothing's going to change. The brand new one is as default as it gets, except we can make some changes to that now. So go into your player controller, and we're just going to set up that hotkey so then we don't have to mess around pressing shift and stuff like that. Okay, so what we're going to do is just pick any key you want. I'm just going to do the hash key because when you press hash, it's pretty much the only thing that pops up. So when that's pressed, I want to unlock my UI and show my mouse so then I can move it. You might want to use the modifiers. If you've seen my short recently, if you've seen my short recently, you can press control as well. So it needs to be a control and hash, which might be slightly better for you. But anyway, so when we press control, what we want to do is we want to create a variable, and the variable is going to be UI editable, and we want to set that. But what we want to do is when we press it once, we want to set it to editable, and when we press it again, we want to deactivate that. So an easy way to do that is to use a flip-flop node. So that'll go through the A channel first and then the B channel second. So editable, yep. And then on the second one, we want it, well, let's just copy that, to be honest, and untick that. Okay. And what we'll do is just for some debugging, we'll put a print string at the end, and we'll put UI unlocked. Whoop, spell that right, unlocked, and then we'll copy that. Whoops, and we'll put UI locked. UI locked, just like that. So that's the unlocking bit, but what we also want to do is we want to show our mouse cursor, so show mouse cursor. So we want to tick that. And then again on the other side, we want to untick that. It's connect that in there just like that. What we also want to do is we just want to tell the game that we're going to be looking at the UI only, just so then we can't move the camera around at the same time we're moving the UI, just because this is subtly different. So a little bit more space just for these nodes. So set UI only. This is going to be get player control. No, it can be self, can't it? Self, get a reference to self. And we don't want to lock anything, so that's fine. And then we need to... Nope, I was going to copy that, but we don't want to copy it. We want to do set game and UI mode for the other one. And I guess what we can do is just bob this down here like that. And pop that into there like that. So that should be it. So let's just... So obviously we're creating this UI editable, so let's just restrict our UI from being clicked on until that is sort of a thing. Go to the health bar, go to the on mouse button down, because this is where everything kind of starts from. And let's do get player, whoops, spell this right. I've got a microphone in front of my keyboard, so it is difficult to type sometimes. So get player controller. And what we want to do is UI editable. Hang on a minute. Sorry, we need to make a reference. Go back to your event graph. On the event construct, let's do a cast to BP player controller. The reference is going to be get player controller. Doing this cast allows us to access the variables within it. So let's make a quick reference, promote this to a variable as player controller. Let's go back to the on mouse button down. Let's get that reference here. So get player controller reference, and in here now we should get a UI editable. So get that. That's going to be our branch, just like that. Plug that in. So if the UI is editable is true, we can carry on. If it's false, then we're not going to do anything. Why doesn't it like this? Did we compile? Compile my player controller. Go back to the health bar, compile. Okay, so we didn't compile when we made that variable, so according to this, it didn't exist. So now if we compile again and press play, so we can run around, play the game, hit control and hash, you can see the UI has been unlocked. My cursor's now appeared. I can drag this and pop it down there, and then I can press control hash again, and we didn't get anything. So what have I done? So maybe actually instead of UI mode we need to put this up here, so game and UI, because I think the UI only is just a mouse pointer, but game is sort of keyboard inputs as well. And then down here we will do set game only. I think this is right, to be honest. Got them the wrong way around. Compile and play. Let's just give that a quick test again. So control and hash unlocked. Drag this over here. Control and hash again. So now we've got it locked, and then we're back in the game. We're back in the game. But at the moment it's not remembering where it is. But we're nearly at half an hour now. I'm probably going to do the save and load bit as a separate video, purely because this is at half an hour and I'm trying to limit myself not to do extremely long content anymore. But let me know down in the comments if you're not bothered about 40 to 50 minute videos. I get the impression some people... I'm looking at the engagement on my videos and it starts to drop off the longer they get. So apologies if you're hanging on for the save and load bit. I'll probably launch that video in 3 days time, so on the Wednesday. But because it'll be a good video to put on its own for people that just want save and load, but we'll tie it into this project as well. But what you've got at the moment is you've got a draggable UI that you can lock behind a key press, and I hope that was informative enough. if you did like it, please consider pressing the like button. If you want to let me know your thoughts, or if you've got any sort of ideas where this could be used, or if there's anything you want to ask me in general, or if you just want to show appreciation, please feel free to pop a comment down below. I do respond to all comments. If you want to chat more about other things, I've got a Discord server down below. There's quite a lot of us now, and everybody sort of chips in to help each other. So even if you just want to come and have a little bit of a nosy, just join the channel. It's, you know, it doesn't cost anything for you. And that's it. Yeah, I guess that's it. So thank you for watching so far. Appreciate if you've watched it this far, and I'll see you in another video, I guess. Thank you.